London is a city of change and contrast. The River Thames reflects the brooding centuries of history and the bright swirl of today, of life, of now, of the excitements and pleasures of a great capital. The Tower of London. Splendors and miseries, deaths and fires. Music from royal barges and processions of kings. The Norman Tower among the ancient, strong Roman foundations of London. Sometimes you must look upwards for the contrast, and sometimes downwards. In the city, commerce is all jumbled up with heraldry. One minute you're an insurance broker, the next minute you don splendid robes in a dreamlike procession out of the past. The poses were once to ward off the plague. Inside the classical banks are liveried messengers with top hats. But there are also newfangled devices such as telephones. You are at the heart of commerce. You are also at the heart of history. Sometimes when you look up, the signs denote old commercial houses. Sometimes they denote old ale. The famous and still popular Cheshire cheese, haunt of Dr. Johnson, is just off Fleet Street, where almost every important newspaper in the world has an office. Fleet Street, the parish pump of Britain. On the majestic steps of St. Paul's, the typists have an hour for lunch. The sparrows and pigeons have lunch all day, fluttering between the steps and the foam sailing in the sky, serene above the bustle of commerce. Change is always round the corner. Change to sudden oases of quiet, with names like Amen Court, Paternoster Row, Ave Maria Lane, Hanging Sword Alley, Bleeding Heart Yard, to a glimpse of book-lined rooms and wide lawns under great trees. Here the lawyers live, thinking. Thinking here in the quiet, loving old gardens and old port. In these quiet gardens, the human tears in the witness box, the furious claims and counterclaims are distilled into precise legal terms. Here is the calm rule of law, but not calm for long. It's all in the papers. Round the corner is Fleet Street again, the street of change, of news, the street where they know everything a day or a month before we do. The mythical griffin guards Temple Bar, the traditional gateway to the city, the boundary between commercial and social life. Piccadilly Circus, the stone village green of London. To take your girl out, to buy a handbag or an enormous limousine, you start from here. From London's most used underground station, you can get anywhere that matters for a few pennies. This is the West End, full of famous and discreet shops that sell fishing tackle or jodhpurs or downs. You can browse around in elegant arcades like long drawing rooms, or in Bond Street, one of the world's great shopping streets. Shopping for the newest things, the latest things, or even a nice cabbage if you happen to live here. People still do, although there are no shepherds in Shepherd Market now, any more than there is hay in the Haymarket. in the mood, you can eat outside. You can change from British roast beef to the food of Italy or Greece or China. You can eat modestly, or you can eat like a Renaissance prince in his palace garden. The great hotels are the visitor's first impression of London after the swift airliner, the carpeted ship. It's where you stop to sleep, to eat, to explore, to live. A few yards from the traffic lies a marvellous great calm of trees, a piece of English countryside at the very centre of our affairs. The tempo changes to the timeless world of children, the world of Peter Pan. Life moves peacefully beside the water. Women and children and dogs and the water. A light, airy painting of summer. That's the great thing about a city. You wouldn't look twice at horse riders in the country, but here they're a spectacle, an entertainment. The whole park is a huge piece of stage country, as though it had been laid out overnight, to entertain. In a city of theatres, the open-air theatre is something special. This green plot shall be our stage, this hawthorn brake our towering house. But it's the Tempest they're doing. All hail, great master, grave sir, hail. I come to answer thy best pleasure, be it to fly, to swim, to dive into the fire, to ride on curled clouds, to thy strong bidding, task aerial, and all his quality. Some of the best pieces of pure theatre in London are free. Her Majesty's Horse Guards holding up the traffic with their everyday splendour.
It's a great day down in Poplar and Bermondsey and Bow and half a dozen other boroughs in the East End of London. A day to have the family up early, for Mum to be ready for an outing. For Alfie and Tom and Mavis and sister report all present on roll call. A day for Dad to make sure he's got his baccy and his favourite pipe with him. For hop picking is round again, and the family is sitting out on its pilgrimage to the green fields of Kent. It's a thrill for the kids, new things to see, new games to play, new kids to meet and swap things with. It's a break for Mum. Still plenty of work to do, but she doesn't mind that when there's a change of scene and air to do it in. And for Dad, well, it's more than an outing or an holiday or a change of job. It's a solemn occasion, a ritual and a rite to be regarded seriously. He's going to lend a hand getting in the beer, and that's not a thing to be taken lightly. It doesn't matter whether you're very young or even beginning to feel a bit old. There's plenty to do, what with one thing and another, and no shirkers are allowed. But there's no fuss in the doing of it. Some of these folk have been hot picking, bless you, for more years than they care to remember, and they know all the tricks of the trade. They're the skilled harvesters of beer, and if enough of it doesn't come your way, it's not their fault. Hop picking is hungry work and thirsty work, but Mum and Sis have got all that in hand. If you don't like washing up, well, don't go hop picking. A fellow has to look smart even in the country, and Grandad means to step out into the village tonight. When everything else is done, there's still the hops to pick. The kids soon get the hang of it, and Dad, well, he's feeling better already. Now he can feel the precious fruit in his hand. Wonderful how good the grub tastes when you've been out in the open air all day. Wonderful how Mum can cook in a strange place like this. Wonderful how you just feel you want to lay back and stretch and read of the Duke and champagne.
At the Royal Exchange, colonial troops entertain atop an air raid shelter. For a year, London has awaited the threatened blitzkrieg of the dictator who assumes divinity while inflicting devilish cruelty. Denied their annual vacations, carefree Londoners take to city pools as substitutes for the more elegant seaside attractions of Ramsgate and Brighton. It is the lull before the storm. A city of initials, London is ready for Goering's threatened total air war. A city of sandbags. The determination of strong hearts is encased in these sandbags to protect live property, statues, and public buildings, especially to protect the home of the premiers on Downing Street. Rigid police rules guard the entrance to number 10, the premier's official domain. Admiralty Arch is guarded by soldiers instead of sailors, but Trafalgar Square is open to all. Colonial troops loll about with sleepy indifference, making friends with doves and lovey-doves, while from a lofty perch a visiting band plays lively airs for a cosmopolitan audience. Jack Tars and Tommies join the general sit-around, while the appeasers predict that Nazis will not dare to bomb London. At London Bridge in town and at Stable Inn with its old gardens, London is normal everywhere. Little does this great city of 1 million homes realize the impending disaster. The war seems 1 million miles away. History is made in the stillness of the night. Keen-eyed spotters scan the night sky, and mechanical ears are always on the alert. Searchlights swing into action as silver pencils of light grope the clouds for possible raiders. Then terror on wings. Flying devils of war lunge at the heart of humanity. The sirens dread along. Now the heroic RAF Spitfires leap into action. Through the darkness hurl the bombs. With tongues of flame spurting from incendiary fires along the waterfront, trembling babies cower in their frightened mothers' arms, and the injured shriek amid the weird clamor of London's frightful disaster. The morning after finds a different London. That first staggering assault, a brutal war on nerves, proved the English have nerve. St. Paul's, that was later ruined by bombs, looks down on an inferno of desolation. London's morale was Hitler's objective, But in one night, London becomes a city of fighters, frontline fighters, firemen, and the home guard, with pickaxe, fire hose, and courage. Destruction everywhere. Walls and windows are shattered, but not the morale. So London comes up smiling. With bulldog tradition, all London carries on. It's just another day for busy people with tired eyes and strong hearts. The great metropolis is again serene, while hurrying crowds afoot and awheel give little signs of defeat. These Londoners are going to their daily work after a frightful smear of hate in history's most gruesome warfare, the unequal war of civilians against soaring demons of the air. And the ravagers of cities who slaughter the unarmed may come again tonight and tomorrow night. Hit-back posters announce the bravery of London, which sets itself to carry on. A member of the AFS rescues a wax figure as carefully as he would a strawberry blonde. Shops reopen almost before incendiary fires cool. Undaunted merchants rise above Holocaust horror to maintain business as usual. They cannot stop for new windows, of course, but mix optimism with grit in keeping things moving. It wasn't only the West End that got all the blasting. Here south of the Thames suffered more. Lambeth Walk, with real Cockney humor, keeps smiling. Where ale is a tonic for the tongue, lads and lassies slur their enemies with sizzling contempt. Every blitz deserves a blister, says the Limehouse philosopher, while raising funds for Spitfires give every enemy bomber the machine gun hot tail. Anything from a German helmet to grandmother's shawl is in the rummage sale for the Spitfire Fund. And nearby is a fallen plane, which is a great attraction, one of Goering's yellow jackets that found British bullets too much for it. There's no argument about it, a Messerschmitt is a paying attraction. Precaution against a ton of high explosives menacing a beautiful cathedral. London's newly formed bomb squad, handling terrific potential death, cools off a time bomb. Facing eternity every time they perform a task like this, the members of the suicide squad are outstanding heroes among a city of heroes. The monument marking the site of the start of the first great fire of London 400 years ago sees this new fire at its very base. The great fire of 1666 beat the firemen, but today the firemen beat the fire. The famous church of St. John the Evangelist, again surrounded by flames, but this time the church is saved, together with its priceless stained glass windows. Gloating dictators said that London was starving, but here they are given the lie direct, with the full force of Billingsgate colourful language. Thousands of Britons, fond of seafood, are fed from this rich bounty of the sea, and the clutching crabs are always a popular delicacy. Billingsgate horses grow moustaches, as much a tradition as the porter's leather helmets now being replaced by metal mushrooms. Packing up bloaters that no longer are floaters is a joy with a good mug of beer. Workers gaze at the newest military target. Of course, a ruthless up small nations doesn't hesitate about blasting a London gas main, but without gas or shop, the coffee shop man renders his patrons the latest air-conditioned service. And why not? Sidewalk dining was popular in the West End long before the Blitz. Jellied eels, never tasted so well indoors as they do in the fresh air, or a spot of tea either, especially under the portals of London's other St. Paul's in Covent Garden, where every porter carries his head as high as his courage. Vegetables are important British needs, and here trade carries on, with cats a part of the market family. Moaning Minnie, the air raid siren blares again. Jim Crow, the observer aloft, scans the heavens with sharp eyes. But no longer does London stop at every alert signal. The country's needs rise above fear and personal danger. Only when the attack is near is the signal given to take cover. All eyes look upward. There's trouble in the air. A flock of Messerschmitts swoop down to drop steel and fire on London. Tracer bullets, like avenging fingers, point out the raiders. A breathtaking spectacle. The most exciting actual battle scenes ever photographed. Balloons are targets for swift Stuka dive bombers that spatter machine gun slugs. A bomber is hit and flops over in the last dive it will ever take. Terror brings glory. The ambulance corps are heroes of every emergency. An all-clear signal. The plunderers of peace have gone, and London is itself again. But the anti-aircraft gunners have an all-around-the-clock job. Bertha, the barrage balloon, lazily returns to Earth for inspection and perhaps for repairs from machine gun bullets. Nazi flyers trapped by searchlights or foiled by a terrific anti-aircraft barrage plunge to Earth in dozens. Hankles everywhere, but they will never fly again. A direct denial of the squadron's illustrated boast showing its eagle mascot defeating a lion. Women and children first seemed the Nazi Air Force motto. Hospitals were not spared, and pallid invalids turned out of their beds bear their multiplied dangers as bravely as Nurse Cabell faced her executioners in 1915. Even churches are desecrated in the frightful scourge of hate. Lordly edifices that were the wonder of the world are dashed to dust, while hell seems to spew forth the venom of murder. Bravely, London fights back. The tireless rescuers search ruins for the victims. Consider London, a city of homes, of fathers, mothers, and children, of millions strong in sublime family love, living in homes that are mansions of the rich and homes of the poor, many homes now ruined, where once the old sat peacefully in cozy corners and new life flowed from mothers' breasts into the mouths of their babies. The light of day is fading, and workers with uncertain transportation hurry home, or down to the home of the homeless in the clattering subway, where hundreds huddle together and are able to smile even on a bed of concrete. The way to safety, downstairs to a bed in a daze of fearful childhood. Guns that battered Napoleon's army are to be made into new instruments of defense, to be again melted into steel, steel to make guns, steel to make shells, shells that are fast becoming a Nazi nightmare. With the machinery of industry geared full speed ahead, master and men are welded together for the common welfare of the nation. Work is unceasing, work that is vital, work that is constructive, work that is destructive. Britain's guardians are prepared. They will not fail. while the city sleeps, its defenders start the noisy lullaby of London. London's crust is rich with hope, for the democracies of the world are uniting, and free men like an avalanche are gathering to crush tyranny. Yes, civilization hangs in the balance, but civilization will endure because while London can take it, London can give it too.
I'm speaking from London. It is late afternoon, and the people of London are preparing for the night. Everyone is anxious to get home before darkness falls, before our nightly visitors arrive. This is the London rush hour. Many of the people at whom you are looking now are members of the greatest civilian army ever to be assembled. These men and women who have worked all day in offices or in markets are now hurrying home to change into the uniform of their particular service. The dusk is deepening. Listening crews are posted all the way from the coast to London to pick up the drone of the German planes. Soon the nightly battle of London will be on. This has been a quiet day for us, but it won't be a quiet night. We haven't had a quiet night now for more than 5 weeks. They'll be over tonight. They'll destroy a few buildings and kill a few people, probably some of the people you are watching now. Now they're going into the public shelters. This is not a pleasant way to spend the night, but the people accept it as their part in the defense of London. These civilians are good soldiers. Now it's 8 o'clock. Jerry is a little bit late tonight. The searchlights are in position. The guns are ready. The People's Army of Volunteers is ready. They are the ones who are really fighting this war. The firemen, the air raid wardens, the ambulance drivers. And there's the wail of the banshee. The nightly siege of London has begun. The city is dressed for battle. Here they come. Now the searchlights are poking long, white, inquisitive fingers into the blackness of the night. Hollywood sound effects. This is the music they play every night in London, the symphony of war. That was a bomb. Deep wisdom given only to the very young and the very old sleep in the shelters. Do you see any signs of fear on these faces? Now the army of the people swings into action. The bombs have started fires. When the bomber starts a fire, he immediately returns, uses it as a target, and drops more bombs, hoping to spread the fire. Yet the People's Army ignores the bombs and the spent shrapnel which rains down constantly. Brokers, clerks, peddlers, merchants by day, they are heroes by night. The night is long, but sooner or later the dawn will come. The German bombers are creatures of the night. They melt away before the dawn and scurry back to the safety of their own airdromes. And there's the wail of the Banshee again, this time a friendly wail. The all-clear signal tells us that the bombers have gone. It's just 6 a.m. In this last hour of precious sleep, this strange new world finds peace. London raises her head, shakes the debris of the night from her hair, and takes stock of the damage done. London has been hurt during the night. The sign of a great fighter in the ring is, can he get up from the floor after being knocked down? London does this every morning. London doesn't look down upon the ruins of its houses, upon those made homeless during the night, upon the remains of churches, hospitals, workers' flats. London looks upwards toward the dawn and faces the new day with calmness and confidence. The People's Army go to work as they did in that other comfortable world which came to an end when the invader began to attack the last strongholds of freedom. Not all the services run as they did yesterday, but London manages to get to work on time, one way or another. In the center of the city, the shops are open as usual. In fact, many of them are more open than usual. Dr. Paul Joseph Gibbles said recently that the nightly air raids have had a terrific effect upon the morale of the people of London. The good doctor is absolutely right. Today, the morale of the people is higher than ever before. They are fused together, not by fear, but by a surging spirit of courage the like of which the world has never known. They know that thousands of them will die, but they would rather stand up and face death than kneel down and face the kind of existence the conqueror would impose upon them. And they know, too, and are comforted by the thought that England is not taking its beating lying down. They are guarding the frontiers of freedom. It is hard to see 5 centuries of labor destroyed in 5 seconds. But London is fighting back. I am a neutral reporter. I have watched the people of London live and die ever since death in its most ghastly garb began to come here as a nightly visitor 5 weeks ago. I have watched them stand by their homes. I have seen them made homeless. I have seen them move to new homes. And I can assure you, there is no panic, no fear, no despair in London town. There is nothing but determination, confidence, and high courage among the people of Churchill's Island. And they know that every night the RAF bombers fly deep into the heart of Germany, bombing munition works, airplane factories, canals, cutting the arteries which keep the heart of Germany alive. It is true that the Nazis will be over again tomorrow night, and the night after that, and every night. They will drop thousands of bombs, and they'll destroy hundreds of buildings, and they'll kill thousands of people. But a bomb has its limitations. It can only destroy buildings and kill people. It cannot kill the unconquerable spirit and courage of the people of London. London can take it.
Advance, Britannia! Long live the cause of freedom! God save the King!
After the Premier had repeated his announcement to the House of Commons, the Speaker led a procession of members, headed by Mr. Churchill and Mr. Greenwood, across to St. Margaret's for a Victory Thanksgiving service. Meanwhile, of course, Londoners had begun their non-stop 2-day celebration. The end of the German war had come 11 months after the landings in Normandy. V-Day came less than a year after D-Day. But it was the end of nearly 6 years of war in Europe. No wonder people went a bit crazy. And this was it in the West End. All over the capital, as indeed in towns and cities throughout the country, it was the same story. This was it in Lambeth Walk.
You can almost bet when the Lambeth people are about, there'll only be one winner. That's the Lambeth people will fight anybody in the United Kingdom or outside the United Kingdom.
They're off down the River Thames, the most historic river in the world. The river which made London the world's largest city. Into it came the invading Romans, Saxons, Danes and Normans. Out of it, into the world beyond, sailed merchant adventurers, explorers or seamen in search of wealth, knowledge or conquest. Because of the Thames, London was a famous city 2,000 years ago. Without the river, London wouldn't be here, or the mother of parliaments either. And you wouldn't have needed a building this size to house the London County Council, which governs over 9 million Londoners. The old and the new are all jumbled together. Here's the Royal Festival Hall, built during the Festival of Britain. And here's the old Shot Tower. More contrasts. Shelmic's House, with the largest clock face in London. And Cleopatra's Needle, carved nearly 3,500 years ago. Through Waterloo Bridge, built just over 20 years ago, and moored just below, is Captain Scott's Discovery, in which he explored the Antarctic in 1900. Lying astern is London's only floating guild, the Wellington, headquarters of the Honourable Company of Master Mariners. London's crowning glory, St. Paul's Cathedral, built on the spot where, legend says, St. Paul himself once preached. During World War II, it survived bombs and fire. Many power stations are on the Thames, but this one is the only oil-burning power station. Even so, it produces its fair share of smoke. Centuries ago, many a trip down the river ended at the Tower of London. Traitor's Gate was the way to the dungeons, the torture chambers, and the execution block. In its 900 years, the Tower has been a fortress, a palace, and a prison. Tower Bridge, the last bridge before the Thames reaches the sea. The huge bascules weigh 1,100 tons each, but they can be raised in 2 or 3 minutes for ships with high masts coming upstream. And no charge is made either. Now we're entering what Ruskin called that mysterious forest below London Bridge. A teeming labyrinth of wharfs, warehouses, quays and docks. The Port of London. It was a busy trading station even in Roman times. From this building, the Port of London Authority runs the port and 69 miles of the river. And the river has its own police. Smugglers, pirates, invaders, exiles, stowaways. They've all come this way. Those who didn't get caught called at this inn for a drink. Today it's just as popular, but more respectable. Parts of the inn are 600 years old. Charles Dickens wrote about it in Our Mutual Friend. The hundreds of barges on the Thames carry anything: oil, fuel for the power stations, food, merchandise. And the 250 shipped-ashore tugs in the Port of London handle 2/3 of the 50 million tons of cargo which reach London every year. This tanker has its mast down so that it can pass upstream beneath the bridges. In the midst of the swirling river life, this missions to seamen vessel, the John Ashley, is a floating refuge of quiet and contemplation. Men who can't get ashore come aboard to rest, to write a letter, or read, or watch a cinema show, or worship. They aren't pressed to do so, and don't have to dress up to attend service. But the simple sincerity in this tiny floating church is a moving experience.
Draw me out of the net that they have laid privily for me, for thou art my strength.
Into thy hands I commend my spirit.
A fifth of all shipping using British ports passes through the Port of London. And you sometimes see visiting warships too. Without its 2,000 acres of docks, London would be nothing. 75 million tons of shipping used it in 1958, twice as much as in 1946. The port handles 1/3 of all Britain's imports and exports, and it costs the Port of London Authority over £17 million a year for services, equipment and maintenance. London is an important distributing centre for Britain generally, but much of the food to feed 9 million Londoners also comes here. This Australian ship holds 8,000 tons of grain. It's being sucked up by a vacuum into a store which holds enough to feed the entire population of London for a week. Food from all parts of the earth. Over 500,000 tons of meat a year, mostly from Australia, New Zealand and the Argentine. $21,000 tons of wines and spirits. $103,000 tons of wool, much of it from Australia. Fruit from everywhere, and timber from Russia, the Baltic, Canada. The longer a ship's in port, the more it costs the owner. So naturally the port which loads and unloads quickest gets the trade. Millions of pounds have been spent in making good war damage and modernising London docks. Further downriver and nearest the sea are Tilbury docks, the gateway to Britain and to the world. The world's ocean-going passenger liners come and go. For many travellers, it is their first or last impression of Britain. Girls who work at one of the big riverside warehouses are used to seeing the craft go by. But here was something special. the Queen had making a tour of the docks. On her way back, she disembarked at Tower Pier and boarded the royal launch for the rest of the journey to Westminster. Once upon a time, English sovereigns came by river from the Tower to Westminster for their coronation. Today, the Thames is again a ceremonial route. So in the bustling life of our time, tradition lives on. And for the Queen, as for anyone, a trip down the Thames is something to remember.
Beneath the Thames, 15 miles east of London, a new road tunnel is being built between Dartford and Purfleet. Mr. George Nugent, Joint Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Transport, descends by lift on the Dartford side to inaugurate the work on the main tunnel. These shafts go down 80 feet on each bank, and they're already linked by a narrow pilot tunnel built under the river before the wall. The main tunnel, wide enough for a double carriageway, will be driven forward by a huge boring shield. Behind this shield, Mr. Nugent inaugurates the work by tightening the last bolt on the first ring of the tunnel lining. For 2,000 years, the Thames has been London's lifeline, but it's a barrier as well. The last downstream bridge is the Tower Bridge. Eastward of that, the last road crossing is the Blackwall Tunnel in the heart of London's East End, where its continuous traffic must thread a way through many miles of congested streets. But before long, thanks to the new Dartford project, millions of vehicles a year will be able to bypass London altogether. The cutting edge of the Great Shield cannot be forced through the chalk and gravel faster than 5 or 6 feet a day, even though the pilot tunnel is already there to help progress. Because of constantly seeping water, the men must work in compressed air at pressures up to 35 pounds per square inch. In 5 years' time, a lorry will be able to drive direct from the Dartford bypass to the Southend arterial.
If you don't know, ask a policeman. If you ask this one, have a lump of sugar ready. London has been here so long that you're not surprised to find whole streets selling nothing but antiques. This one is on the edge of Chelsea. Not only antiques, of course. Here on the fringe of the West End, there's a bit more room. Room for huge shops which seem to feel instinctively that the residential area is beginning. And they're almost like enormous quiet houses themselves. Great, quiet, carpeted, elegant houses offering all the goods in the world to all the people in the world. The mews and little houses where Victorian coachmen once lived are now smart and expensive. They have coloured doors that say F-I-V-E instead of the figure 5. No, I don't think I'll take the rolls today. The original big houses are offices or flats. It's the little houses that make Chelsea a smart village now. For Chelsea is a village with homes and children. Royal Military Hospital, the home of the Chelsea pensioners, was designed by Sir Christopher Wren and founded by Charles II. Here, these splendid old men, still erect and upright, veterans of long-forgotten campaigns, live their ordered lives.
In pensioners of the Royal Hospital, in pensioners, shut!
Intentioners! Right! Intentioners! Quick!
Old soldiers never die. Perhaps it's the daily ration of a pint of beer. Turner and Whistler painted in Chelsea too, drawn to draw the ancient river, ever-changing, ever the same, running like a noble theme through London, past the Houses of Parliament, past Westminster Abbey, begun 8 centuries ago, still filling and emptying with its daily tides of worshippers and visitors. In times of change, some things do not change. Some things give a rock-like strength from the past. This is when London remembers what she is and how she weathered the changing centuries. This is the proud, plumed London of bells and bridges and nursery rhymes. Pussycat, pussycat, where have you been? I've been to London to see the Queen. This is the London of palaces, Buckingham Palace, St. James's Palace, where ambassadors present credentials, sentries present arms, and visitors present cameras. At the other end of the Queen's processional front drive is Whitehall, home of the sober-suited civil servants and others more resplendent. Here are the panoply and plumes which thousands pass every day without looking aside. The casual, everyday glory that for other thousands is the most remembered thing in London. Monuments and stone heroes like Nelson, museums and galleries, buildings at the heart of a nation. Ships, towers, domes, theatres and temples lie open onto the fields and to the sky. Wordsworth wrote that on Westminster Bridge in the smaller London of 1802. By the river that remembers Boadicea, the first lady driver with knives on her wheels. But there's always something new on its banks. The Royal Festival Hall. From its contemporary balconies, St. Paul's comes into view again. The river, once wide and marshy, is disciplined by the stone embankment. The river that is like a man's mind, the part that absorbs and remembers, that sees a change and is alive. Said Dr. Johnson, when a man is tired of London, he's tired of life.